Welcome to Surrender School.
So today we are doing Chapter 12, Step 12, and it is Session 11. And I'll explain why I shifted kind of everything so that we can finish up doing something very special next week. I'm excited about. Okay. The goal of the class is a personal journey, not intended to teach you the Enneagram, but there is a lot of information that hopefully you picked up some of. So you have a side benefit of Enneagram knowledge now. The goal is to help you recognize the wonderful person that you are, that you're wired to be, so that you can relax into your true self where the God of your understanding resides, or at least touches you. The way we do that is we recognize the unseen forces that drive our behaviors, and those are the passions. In program, we call those defects or defenses, and the fixations, which are the stories we tell ourselves. We catch ourselves. The way we do that is we catch ourselves in the act when our ego causes us to act out our persistent defects, and then we gently remind ourselves to return to our true shining self. Once again, I'm not an expert on anything. Recovery is a process, not an event. Self-contempt stops spiritual growth. So pretty much the main point of this whole thing is for us to stop hating ourselves, stop feeling contempt for ourselves, because we want to grow spiritually. I've kept the homework mostly to a minimum, especially here in the final chapters. And then I'm focusing on my own examples, which are type 8 and relatively obvious. Okay. So I'm going to start with just the 2-minute shares on last week's assignment. And I would love people to share on this. I'm going to do a little background before I open this for shares. My brother-in-law was in the hospital for about a week and a half, and then he passed away. And so family's been in town, and there's been all this shit happening. My sister has a very small house, so we've been doing all the dinners and everything and breakfasts and everything here because it's so expensive to eat out. It has been a roller coaster in my life and because I'm retired and it's my husband and I and 2 little dogs, right? So it's been just absolutely insane. And you've all been lovely and patient and still coming back, and I appreciate it. I don't even remember what I talked about the last 2 weeks. So anyway, I went back and watched it to make sure that I didn't make a complete ass of myself. But anyway, I just appreciate your patience so much on this. But I really, really would love for some people to share. And I know a lot of what's happening, and some of that is because my energy pushes into the world. So I've been like even more lately, blah, 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 right? So I want to be sure that there's some, even if it's just still amorphous in your mind, I'd love for people to just share a little bit about insights in what you've learned. And really the focus today is on, I talked to my therapist and said, how do I get people to recognize their gifts, right? And he said, joy. That's the answer. Not joy, but joy. Anyway, not our joy, but joy. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to ask anybody who even has an inkling to share. I would love for you to share. All right. Notice at the bottom of the screen is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to those who still suffer and to practice these principles in all our affairs. This is step 12. And what I find interesting about step 12, what am I doing? There we go. Okay. And now it's at the top of the screen. I'm going to break this apart because I think this is another one of those that I feel like people, it's almost become cliche as opposed to what it's really about. So I want to talk about what it's really about, and we'll go step by step through this. So the first thing is the word the. The word the means something different than So Magda and Liz and people who English is your second language, this I'm specifically doing for you guys so that for those that have English as a second language, this kind of little thing is usually not explained because it all kind of, they're called determiners, right? It all kind of works together, but I want to explain this. If this said having had a spiritual awakening is a result of these steps, it means it's one of many, and maybe I have it, maybe I don't. What this says, when you have the word the there, it says, I have a spiritual awakening. It is absolutely the result of these steps. So when I work these steps, I get the spiritual awakening. It's like it's a guarantee of that. So that the is very important. It guarantees that if you work the steps, you get the spiritual awakening, right? So when people read this, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these, no, this is the result of these steps. Super important. Okay, the next thing is this says we tried to carry the message. It does not say that we do. It says we try. And this gives us that little bit that says we're human. We're human and sometimes we don't. We're human and we try. And sometimes we miss and sometimes we whiff and sometimes we forget. All those things, right? It never, ever expects perfection, ever. And I think that's wonderful. So now I'm going to give some other definitions here. The term spiritual awakening means coming to an awareness of our spiritual nature, that we understand that we have a spiritual, that our nature is spiritual, having a human experience. We are not humans having a spiritual experience. Our nature is spiritual. So therefore, the spiritual awakening says, oh, I am aware that there is something beyond this physical body and this world. There's something beyond that. There's something greater. There's a greater power that that is somehow embodied in me. And that is what spiritual awakening means. Okay. And it is guaranteed from working the program, which I love. The word practice is the next word. It is a systematic exercise for the purpose of proficiency. That's its definition. Systematic means we have a system, the way that we do it. It is an exercise, which means we're basically doing our best. And the purpose is proficiency, not perfection, right? So when it says we practice these principles, it's a systematic exercise, which means I don't do it occasionally. I do it as part of a system, a part of my day and part of my life and part of the way I do it. And the purpose is for me to become better at it, right? So all of that kind of defines that sentence. And then the last one is that I want to talk about. It says to carry this message to those who still suffer. This is the one that gets us mostly. Because if you ask someone, what is the message you're carrying? And they say, don't eat carbs. Seriously? That's your message? What? No, that isn't. It might be a method that you use. That is not your message, right? We are spiritual beings. Here is the message. People who live out of their true self in spirit, right? Inhabited, I'll say that by their higher power, live with purpose, freedom, and love. It takes work, but the blessings are abundant. That is the message. That is the message. It isn't about food. It isn't about not drinking. It isn't about not drugging. This is the message. The cool part and how it ties back to our life then is the fact that we don't just share the message. We are the message. Our life is the message, right? Do you talk about it? Sure, but you live it. That's what we're really talking about. All right. So how do we do this practice that I'm talking about? Okay. So the first thing you do is you watch for ego structure responses, right? That's that passion, right? That those where your ego jumps out, in my case, and gets in people's faces or whatever. And then also you look at the changes of the softening of whatever it is as you grow, right? The 9s, checking out less. The 2s, less of a hook to the love that they give, all of that, right? Okay. And then finally, you celebrate and you ask yourself every time you catch yourself in the act. And that is, I view the passion and virtue, right? They're on the same continuum. On the one end is the passion where I'm always acting out, doing like the ego structures in charge. On the other continuum is basically, literally living in the virtue. And somewhere along that continuum is where I live, is where I live every day, right? And different days, it's different places on the continuum. So basically the question to ask when you catch yourself, whoa, okay, I just saw myself do something that really close to the passion, not on the end of the virtue. And the same thing when I catch myself, that was very right. And it's not like, oh, I'm virtuous. It's like, oh, that was close to the virtue. Okay, so for me, right, the passion and the virtue, that virtue is that innocence, looking through fresh eyes, really realizing my sister is doing the best she can. She's doing the best she can. She's in a really tough spot right now. She's doing the best she can. And then I go, okay, Cheryl, that's where you need to land. That's where you need to stay. Okay. And then on the fixation, which is the story we tell ourselves, we always tell ourselves stories. So don't think you're ever going to get past that. The question is, am I telling myself the story that that my bad behavior is is fine, it's deserved, it should be this way, or I'm on the other where I'm saying, in my case, truth, it's only truth. Is this what my higher power really wants me to do? Is this really what my higher power wants me to be? Okay, so that to me is step 12. It isn't radically different than other people's perspective, other than maybe the message. So that's one of the things when you work with your sponsees, especially, make sure they're really clear on what the message is. This is a spiritual program. Bill says it over and over and over again, right? One of the benefits is that we stop drinking, drugging, compulsively eating, etc. But the program itself is spiritual. It's intended to be spiritual. And that means we get to have a spiritual awakening. We get to live a spiritual life. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do now is, instead of, it was funny, I was trying to work on that where it says, right, what might make this difficult for me? And everything was because you don't know your gift. That was the answer for everybody. And I started writing it like the fifth time, and I thought, okay, well, that's stupid. So instead of that, what I decided on this particular slide is to say, where shall I look for my special gift that my true self brings? So your true self, right? That true self, that innocent true self, the way that you were born before ego structure built up and defended it. Where shall I look for that? What trait, I guess I'll say it that way, is a good place for me to start looking? And so what I did is I borrowed from Michael Naylor's titles of these, and that's pretty much what I put here. So for the one, look to mercy. Is there something, is there somewhere where you can be or are merciful, right? For the two, intuition. Twos are very intuitive, but sometimes won't use the intuition, right? Intuitive meaning they understand when people are in need, and sometimes they will, they don't usually ignore it, but they will supply something else or something. So anyway, look to intuition. For the three, look for inspiration. Can you be inspirational, or even inspirational for yourself? For the four, creativity. For the five, kindness. It's really funny because my husband acts, maybe seems kind of rough sometimes, but he is very kind, right? And then when I say that was kind, he's like, whatever. I love it. Okay. For the six, courage. Courage. I almost put the Pathfinder piece here because that's also finding unique ways to solve problems, but I love the courage part. For seven, look to joy. For eight, strength. And for nine, gentleness. So inside of that, that's what you want. That's what you want to look for, because maybe your gift is tied to that. All right, the next thing I want to talk about, I read a book one time called Joy is My Compass by Alan Cohen, and I really liked the book. But I love the whole concept of this. And I want you to really, really think about this. And this will blow your mind if you are a servant by nature. Because, and I'm just starting to live this. It's very difficult because I'm used to controlling the world, but it is absolutely, I think it's true. Joy is my compass because that's where my service needs to be. And when I said earlier, when I asked my therapist, how do people find their gifts? And he said, look for joy. Because if you have joy in it, okay, and then I wrote this down, find service that matches your type and you will feel joy in that service. So if you find a service that matches your Enneagram type, you will find joy in it. When your service is not in the area of your gift, it doesn't bring joy and it feels like obligation. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to have things you have to do that aren't part of that are an obligation and you have to do them. I'm not saying that. But I do say at least one area of your life, at least one area, find something that will bring you joy, and your service will not feel like service. It will feel like joy. And I think what's amazing to me, because I mean, I've been retired for 2 years and doing nothing and just feeling kind of lost. And I'm like, wait a minute, right? I have this gift that God gave me that I'm not using. So use it. And that's what I'm saying here. Joy is your compass. Ask yourself, does this give me joy? Because that's the main service that you want, right? So, and I believe this with all my heart, by the way, and maybe it's because I get joy in something that is a skill of mine or something. I don't know, but anyway, at least look there, because I think that will teach you something. I really do. Okay, we're going to do an exercise now that I would like you to do with me. It's only going to take a couple minutes, but I think that this might help. And then once again, this is one of those areas. What I kept hearing back from people is, I don't know what my gift is. I don't know what my gift is. So it's like, okay. And once again, I think for eights, because we're obvious, our gifts, maybe you're obvious too. I don't know, at least to ourselves. All right. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to close your eyes. And the first thing I want you to do is really picture this. Like I want it to be a picture in your head, not a thought, but truly an image that you put in your head. And here's the first one. Your favorite thing to do alone. I want you to close your eyes and picture what is your favorite thing to do alone. Now I want you to picture your favorite thing to do with another person that you love. What is your favorite thing to do with another person that you love? And the third thing, what is your favorite thing to do in a group? What is your favorite thing to do in a group? Okay, which one of these three things, when you did the image of it, gave you a feeling of joy? Which one gave you a feeling of joy? And then the next question is, does this joy tie to the way that you are wired? In other words, is it tied to the virtues of your type, your subtype, your wings, your arrows, your harmonic group, and so forth? I'll give an example. My husband, right? Um, he and we live in Las Vegas and we'll go and play slots. And that's a really fun thing that the two of us do once a week and we really enjoy it. His favorite thing to do alone, he likes to ride his motorcycle. He likes to play his guitar, right? So very easy for him to picture that. Favorite thing to do in a group, I bet he would not even be able to come up with one thing he liked to do in a group, right? So obviously what gave him a feeling of joy is spending time with me, which I really appreciate, and also the to do alone, right? So let's say he would pick the favorite thing is because he loves to play guitar. So okay, that's his favorite thing. And that joy does tie to the way he's wired because he is a five, right? And they like to spend time alone, right? He likes to spend time on his computer doing research. He loves to do that. So that ties to all of that. And then the final thing, now I want you to imagine this. Imagine that you have one purpose, and that is to help someone else live a life of purpose and freedom. That is your holy work, is to help someone else live a life of purpose and freedom. Because when you think about it, that's why we sponsor. We don't sponsor so people don't overeat. We don't sponsor so people don't drink, right? That's admission to the room. We sponsor so we can help someone else live a life of purpose and freedom. That it's deeper. It's so much deeper than just not drinking or not drugging or not compulsively eating. It has to be deeper than that for it to last. Because otherwise, that's why we have so many people come in and then leave. And all of us come in and then kind of dabble and leave, right? Well, I'll tell you, once you are helping other people live a life of purpose and freedom, that becomes your purpose and freedom as well. And it's like contagious and it's wonderful, right? But that is okay. And the way that you do that is that you are a gift to the world. Nobody is exactly like you. Share your gift. All right. So life in 10, 11, and 12, we talked about this last week. I'm going to cover it again because it's super important. Live clean is 10. Seek God is 11. Help others. Do what I just talked about. Okay. Live clean means if you make a mistake, you see it, immediately apologize and do better next time. And I know I just watched the video from last week to be sure I made sense, but I'm going to say this again. This has nothing to do with guilt or shame because that is the way we have evolved. So when when you see your mistake, you see, ooh, shouldn't have said that. In my case, it's almost always said something. Shouldn't have said that. I see it. Go, shouldn't have said that. I apologize immediately. I do better next time. I just do better next time. Do I do perfectly next time? No, but I do better. And I do better all the time, right? But I never do it perfectly ever. But I don't beat myself up because if I do that, if I get into that cycle of then it's self-hatred and then spiritual growth goes out the window. Okay, seek God we talked about. And then once again, I say consistent daily spiritual practice. This is also your end of day review. If you remember last week with the colander where, it says, okay, what did I miss throughout the day? Because maybe I didn't see what I needed to see. And then finally here, live your best life. That's what you do. You live your best life. You be your true self as much as you possibly can, which will not be always. It can't be always. And then you use your gifts. That's what you do. You use your gifts. Find out what your gift is. And once again, joy is your compass there. And then you use your gifts. All right. These little guys are back. And I'm going to talk about, we're going to play a game here. Let's see. So I want everyone to unmute, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how we want to do this, but let me show it to you. First of all, this is a bumper sticker. And I thought it was really funny. If you're happy and you know it, clap your, oh, it's a pterodactyl. Can't clap his hands. I think that's hilarious. Okay. So this is True Self bumper stickers. Can you match to type? So let's start with number one. Which one is the bumper sticker for type 1? You can unmute and yell it out if you want to. Which one?
Easy does it.
Easy does it is a good one, but it's not.
No. Lighten up.
I think that if let me go here. All right, it is live and let live. Is the bumper sticker for the true self of the type 1. Okay, how about type 2?
Humility, not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less.
That is it. That is 2. Okay, how about 3? We don't have a lot of 3s in the room either, but it is the true to thine own self be true. How about 4?
Lighten up.
That actually would be really good, but that's not. I think it's attitude of gratitude. I think, yeah, it's having an attitude of gratitude. But so many of them, it's like, wait a minute, I should do that. Okay, so how about 5?
Lighten up.
Lighten up.
5 is lighten up. Yep. How about 6?
Face
everything and recover.
Face everything and recover. Yep. Okay, how about 7?
One day at a time.
One day at a time, absolutely, because they throw themselves into the future. Okay, how about 8?
Easy does it.
Easy easy does it for sure. And then 9 is first things first.
First things first.
Okay, everybody good? All right. Okay, so using your arrows, she spent a lot of time on arrows. Most of the stuff that she talked about on arrows I covered earlier, so I decided not to spend a lot of time doing that today. But once again, this is how you return to your true self. Get through the steps if you haven't done that already. Do your daily spiritual work. I can tell you, when I was new in program, I would every once in a while look at spiritual stuff. Every once in a while read the book. Every once in a while do the work that was my work. Every once in a while, and then I wondered why I wasn't growing, why things weren't getting better. And it's so now that I do spiritual work every day. It's like, well, that's why. I mean, that would be like working out once a month, which is what I do, by the way. But I have no expectations that I'm going to be in great shape as a result of working out once a month. Hello. And it's the same thing with spiritual stuff too. Okay. Pray, meditate, journal, work with others. Okay. Live in steps 10, 11, and 12, which I've talked about the last 2 weeks. Live clean, seek God, help others. This allows you to catch yourself in the act of good things as well as bad things, right? Of all those things. Okay. What I'm going to cover now, and I've got just a few minutes to do it. I'm going to cover what we're going to be doing next week. I've got the worksheet for the type 1 ready to go, and I'm going to show it to you, but it's only type 1. The rest of them I'll work on over the next couple of days, but you'll have a sheet just like this for your type. And then what we're going to do is fill it all in, and I call it a picture of you. So it is your type with all the choices, or I guess maybe you're not choosing, but all the things that you are even within that make you different. So, obviously subtypes, the instincts, all of that, right, make that different. Okay, so this is what the document looks like. You can go ahead and mute yourselves again if you would. This is what the document looked like, and this is just for the 1. And once again, the little guy's back. So the first thing I want to look at the Burj Khalifa, the building. 1 is the very top is like completely healthy. You are Mother Teresa or whatever. I mean, you're just like amazing. And at the very bottom, very unhealthy. You should probably be in prison. So that's the range, right? And so if you remember, there's like the pin that goes in where you usually live, and then the rubber band that stretches to a couple of other levels. These are called levels. This is not in the book. It is in almost any of the Russ Hudson books, but it isn't in the book that we read. But the levels basically let us see our growth, because what we do is we move the pin up, right? As we become more spiritual, we move the pin up, but we still stretch between a couple. So I would say probably, right, I am sitting somewhere between 3 and 4. I think usually I'm at 3. Last couple weeks, I think I probably dropped down to 4. I'm thinking, because it's been stressful, but right. But then I have that rubber band. So even in a stressful time, occasionally I go up into 3, right? Okay, or maybe even 2, I don't know, right? But I may drop down to 5 or 6. But it's really almost impossible impossible for me to drop down into unhealthy, because I've worked such a program. Could I? Sure, right? That means I'm doing whatever I shouldn't be doing, so that I'm moving that pin down. So just think of that, okay? So we're going to talk about, you're going to circle when you have your document, you're going to print it out, and you're going to circle kind of where you think the pin is right now, right? And that, by the way, is generally how I live my life. It's not today necessarily, but this is where I think the pin is right now, which means I stretch a couple of the other directions, and that's kind of where I live on a day-to-day basis. Okay, now let's go to the top. This is type 1. The traditional title for type 1 is perfectionist. I put that in there because when you're going and looking at other material, which, by the way, next week I'm going to give you an annotated bibliography of all the books that I've used and other books that have been recommended by other people about the Enneagram. Also, if you have any and you want to send them to me, like I looked at this website, it was really cool. I saw these YouTube videos. There's so much information out there. And now you know what the nomenclature, right? You know what all of these different words mean. They mean something to you. So when you're watching those or reading those books, they make sense. Okay. Then the true self title is merciful teacher for the 1. Below that, the lie is I and life must be perfect, right? They're striving to be perfect. And then I will have you, when you have your document, you're going to circle, right? What do they avoid? Do you avoid criticism? Do you avoid rule breaking or illogical behavior? Because some people, they might avoid rule breaking, but they don't avoid the other 2. That tells you about you, right? Then below that, and once again, remember the continuum. On your passion is one end, on the other end is the virtue. For the 1, it's anger on one end and serenity on the other. And I want you to basically put a circle or a star or something where you are on the continuum. And it could be today, or it could just be in general, however you want to do that. And then the fixation or holy idea, stories we tell ourselves, right? On one end is the resentment, all these people done me wrong, right? And on the other end is the world is the way the world is supposed to be. This is God's perfection. Where are you on that continuum, right? Okay. The basic fear, being defective, the basic desire to be virtuous. I decided to write that instead of have you write that, right? That just is a hint. And then the triad centers, right? So the body, heart or head, you circle which one. The main underlying emotion, fear, shame, anger, circle which one that you are, and then live in time. And I'll cover this, right? And those don't change. Now, below are the things that you pick about yourself. For the instincts, are you self-pres, which is the drawing, social, which is connecting, and sexual, which is approaching. On the harmonic groups, which of the harmonic groups are you in? And then which is your strong wing, which is your weak wing, which is your back arrow, which is your forward arrow. Then I'm going to have you write your mantra, and then the little box that is completely empty, you can put a picture of yourself, or you can draw a picture of yourself, or whatever. But I left a space. Maybe you take additional notes. This kind of summarizes all the stuff that we have been working on, but it tells you you. And so next week, we're going to spend all kinds of time on this. I'm going to go over every one of these, and then we'll open it as we're going through it for questions, because I think the best way to do that, and I know we purposely set it up so that the questions and sharing and all this stuff is completely separate. Next week, we're not going to set it up that way. Next week, we're going to set it up so that there are questions, so long as you realize I'm not an expert, and there may be a lot of times where I go, I don't know. And if you can accept that, then so can I. All right. And we are ready for the sharing section of this.
Thanks for recovering with us.